What's up, everybody? Hello and welcome to episode number 290 of the VK Bros with Jason and Alex VK. Big show as always this week, guys. We got more stuff out of the Epstein files. We got some stuff that's happening close to home Australian politics. But I want to start with a little bit of a curveball. I want to give a shout out to Carl Stefanovic because he dropped his own podcast. And I'm a natural cynical guy when it comes to anyone who's been around the mainstream media for too long. But, as we believe in on this show, I've exposed myself to the content, and I've actually quite enjoyed it, the Carl Stefanovic show. He's had a lot of... It's been interesting, because obviously being in the media for a long time, he has pushed many a far-left agenda on the media, and he seems to have only had right-wing personalities on his show so far. Like his first
he has been criticised for that.
Well, his first guest was Pauline Hanson, and then he's had... Madge Maguire, the Broncos coach, fair enough, he's been a lifetime Broncos fan. He's had Jacinta Numpajimpa Price on. I'm listening to his latest one, which is with Big Chocky and Sam Bamford from Two Worlds Collide. Now, all of the black pillars will tell you, who's controlled opposition and blah, blah, blah. Like, I get it. That's what it kind of looks like from the outset. You know, you get this guy, sort of like Tucker Carlson, right? You get this swamp creature who's been in that media ecosystem his entire life, and then you set him out on his own, and you give him a microphone and put some right-wing talking points in front of him, and all of a sudden, you know, he's pushing a different agenda for some reason. But I got to say, I've enjoyed the content so far. So shout out to Carl, keep it up.
Well, so when I saw some criticism of it, I was like, oh yeah, I didn't even notice that he basically interviewed exclusively, like, conservatives, like ultra conservatives. And when I first saw it, I was like, yeah, you know, that's right. You know, is he grifting now? But then if I think back to his career, and some of his most famous clips is of him not being able to handle trying to push the narrative.
That is true, and he did have a pretty famous one during COVID as well, where he flipped out about the vaccines.
Yeah, so I think this is probably more the real him.
I'd say so, because he just seems like a dude, hey. He just seems like a dude, so...
Yeah, I'd have a couple of Bruceys with him.
Yeah, I would as well. So, look, shout out to Carl. I have
a shout out too.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Shout out to Optus. Now, I'm not usually like a shill kind of guy, but I've always been annoyed that when you are loyal to a company and they don't do anything for you, so all the new offers are for
new customers, yeah.
New customers?
Recruit new customers.
But they just texted me this yesterday, and I was like, this can't be real, right? So they often do stuff, like the one previous to that was like essentially buy a new Samsung, or go on a new Samsung plan, and they'll give you a $1,500 TV for free, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's alright.
Which I didn't do, but then this one, hi there, thank you, gift is waiting. We've partnered with Perplexity, an AI-powered search engine, to give you 12 months free Perplexity. So it's $300. Gives me the promo code, and no credit card details up front. No, like, it's just a genuine thing. And I was like, I don't know if that is it legit. So I just set it all up this morning. Dude, it's mint. I've got everything connected. It was simple. It's got, here's your pro program, no charge. I am a heavy user of AI, so
yeah.
And I was using Perplexity before. I even had Perplexity replace Google Gemini on my Pixel phone as the default AI.
Oh yeah.
Because I think it performs better. It's got some of the safety sort of nets turned off. And it's one of the few AIs out there that can actually control your phone. So, for example, like you can use it to set alarms or send text messages to people, which some of the other ones, like ChatGPT, can't do.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, gave me $300 worth of value. I like that.
Yeah. Oh, look, shout out Gladys Berejiklian doing a great job as the new CEO of Optus.
Now I want to. Yeah, gross. Now I want to start with something that we haven't discussed before. I did put it in the chat, but if you can't tell by the colour of my skin, I was on a boat yesterday and having a great time. And one of the topics of conversation that came up, which I found really, really interesting, which we raised as it was happening, but we haven't sort of closed the loop on it, was USAID.
Yep.
So remember when the biggest story in the world was that if America stops funding USAID, the whole world will collapse?
Won't somebody think of the children?
Yeah. where's that narrative now?
It's disappeared because nothing has changed.
Now, I have seen the odd article that talks about, looks like vaccination in Uganda has gone down or something like that. But
so they'll be healthier.
But why? Where is, like, if this is why politics is not real, because that was the biggest thing in the world at the time in the media. It's gone, and no one gives a shit anymore. Whereas, like, if you truly believed that it was an existential threat, don't you think you'd be staying close to that story?
Yeah, so there's two parts to this, and I'm glad that you brought it up, because I think this is the stuff that we love dissecting on this show. Part number one is you're right about the narrative part of it. So we all know that when narratives enter the media ecosystem, they are an existential threat. They're the most important thing that you can possibly be thinking about at that certain, like, that date and that time. And then after a period of time, when that narrative has served its purpose and is no longer necessary, that exits the information space, and the new narrative of the new existential threat. Great examples in the recent years: COVID was one, Ukraine-Russia war was one, climate change is one, and these things just rotate throughout the news cycle to keep you. It's not even engaged.
Invested.
Yeah, it's manufacturing your consent. That's what this is all about. It is about manufacturing your consent for your tax dollars to be pushed towards a certain cause. Now that's element number one. Element number two is realizing that all of these supposed causes, are a way of stealing your money. That's what every single one of these causes or narratives is. It is a way to steal your money. So, Russia-Ukraine war, again, we saw protests in the street almost every weekend. We saw Ukrainian flags in everyone's bio. You know, we saw all of this support. We heard all the stories. The ghost of Kyiv, you know, the female fighter pilot that was shooting all the Russians out of the air, which was BS. And all of that was around. Then our government comes out and goes, we're going to support Ukraine by sending them a few $1 billion. And then where'd that money go? And then you hear all the stories about how Zelensky's wife was at some fancy boutique French jewellery shop buying $4 million worth of jewellery shortly after the war had began. You know, climate change is the exact same thing. Existential threat. Renewables are the cheapest form of energy. Your energy bill keeps going through the roof, and yet the people who are invested in the green energy space keep getting richer and richer because they are flushing your tax dollars out of your pockets directly into the pockets of these predatory billionaires. That's what all these things are about. The CFMEU story that we covered last week is the exact same thing. You know, we're building this for you, and we're building your future, and infrastructure is so important. We need more and more money, billions and billions of dollars to go into these infrastructure projects. And then you realise where that money is actually going, like to Mick Gatto, you know, the famous underworld figure. So every single narrative which is sold to you in an emotive way without data is all designed to manufacture your consent for the ruling elite to take money out of your pocket and give it to themselves and their friends. That's what you need to understand about how the world works.
Yeah. So don't get inflamed by it. Don't get enraged by it. Just understand it for what it is. It's just a racket.
Yep.
It's all a racket. I noticed that you shared on your page this morning that thing I sent you where, what is it? We are the highest level of bureaucracies per citizen.
Yeah.
In the world.
Yep.
There's your shakedown there. That's your laundering, your money laundering.
And what I liked about that clip is that you were one of about 5 people who sent me that same clip. So obviously people are getting onto it. And so just to break it down for anyone who hadn't seen it, so it's an interview with John Anderson, who is a former Deputy Prime Minister, I think.
Deputy,
Deputy. Liberal Deputy Prime Minister, who's got his own podcast now. And it was a clip where he was interviewing some gentleman who was talking about how Australia employs the highest amount of bureaucrats per capita of any country in the world. And the issue with that is twofold. Number one, it means that the tax burden has to increase on the citizenry, because as we've covered many times recently, the Australian government gets roughly 55% of its total tax revenue from income tax. So you, the middle class of Australia, are the cash cow for the government. 55% of their income comes directly from you working, right? So the more bureaucrats you hire, the higher that tax burden then becomes. So then they have to keep coming up with new creative ways to tax us every single year just to cover the expenditure of this overblown government. The second problem with that is it's exactly the same play as what we've been talking about with Labor and bringing in migrants and also caring for the poor. It's essentially locking in Labor voters because every single one of those groups, poor people, migrants, and bureaucrats, are all directly dependent on government handouts of money. So you are essentially buying their support. So as the Labor government, and look, the best example of this, especially for Queensland, as you remember, was when Campbell Newman won the Queensland state election. I think it was 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. And he was talking about, we need to cut the public service. We need to do cutbacks. And you saw the entire media furor around it because it was all, oh, he wants to fire nurses and doctors and teachers and blah, 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 blah. The reality is we do need to cut the public service. We absolutely need to cut the public service. The fact that we have the highest, and look, I could half accept us having a higher level compared to other countries purely based on the size of the country compared to the population. So you're trying to service quite a large area with a small population of people. So I can sort of cop that we would be on the higher end, right? Because if you've got the regions, for example, you can't have someone taking care of Brisbane City and then also regional Queensland doing some sort of bureaucratic role. You need two people. So I can sort of cop that we would be on the higher end. But it's like obscenely higher than any other country, particularly in the West. And all you're doing, well, a few things. Number one, you're entrenching voters, because if you are the one who says, I'm going to keep paying you and I'm going to keep hiring more people, you're entrenching your voter base.
And ask yourself, if you do work for the government, or I know teachers, I know some council workers, their bosses will walk around coming election time and saying, everyone's voting Labor, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's voting Labor.
Because your paycheck's directly dependent on it.
Yeah.
But the problem is that also when we spoke about the RBA when they increased interest rates at the beginning of this month, they were to try to counteract some of the negative narratives around the economy at the moment, which were the reasons why they had to put rates up in the first place. The head of the RBA, Michelle Bullock, tried to claim that wage growth has been a positive in Australia because wages are increasing in line with inflation. So even though inflation is going up, wages were keeping pace with it. But when you actually deep dive into that data, what she didn't say at that point in time is that the wage growth is coming in the public sector. It's not coming in the private sector.
Which is inflationary.
It's inflationary.
Yeah, because it doesn't produce anything.
Yep.
So the best way to think about it is you've got more money chasing the same goods. And because government workers don't produce anything, they don't make stuff, they don't sell services, that means that you have more, and you're giving more money. It means more money is in circulation chasing the same items, which pushes the price of those items up.
Correct. Now, remove your frontline workers from this equation.
Yes, please. Yeah, I was going to say
you have to remove those because they are vitally important. Your nurses, your teachers, your police, your firefighters, vitally important people, their job is not to be productive, right? Their job is to attend to a social need, and they are vitally important. I would argue that a good teacher is actually very good for productivity if they're able to educate the next generation of kids coming through in the right way to make them productive adults. So
we've spoken about it a bunch. When we talk about the blob, the bureaucracy, we're not talking about nurses, teachers, firefighters.
But I think it's good for us to reiterate that so people don't get.
We are talking about the form factories.
Correct.
We've shown, Senate estimates hearings where there's a the department that's deciding what the carbon price is going to be that gets funded $200 million a year.
Yep.
Has 200 staff.
Well, they also just announced. So remember, Victoria started their own voice, the Victorian voice, which will kick into gear. I think it's this year it starts. and they'll just announce some of the salaries for the people. I think everyone who is in the Victorian Voice is on like $197,000 a year. There's 4 bigwigs who are on over $300,000 a year. Now you have to consider the fact that yes, okay, to steelman the Victorian Voice as a concept and an idea, you might argue that those people are important at pushing forward the wants and needs of the Indigenous and First Nations community. You could argue that. But on the flip side of it as well, you're also adding a gigantic tax burden to the taxpayer, and adding an extra layer of bureaucracy will only have a negative effect on productivity. It cannot go the other way. You cannot add bureaucracy that has a justifiable role and have them remove burdens on productivity. It just doesn't work that way. So this is what we're saying is remove all the frontline workers. These mid-level bureaucrats whose whole role is to police government regulation is the most anti-productive position that you can have in the country. And the problem with Australia is our country is absolutely full of them.
Yeah, I'm just looking up. So we covered on the show when we were 64th in the economic complexity chart. And economic complexity is how many different industries or things are we good at, and do we produce some economic activity in? And so we were 64th, which was Uganda was 63rd.
Yeah.
So I've just looked up. So because some newer numbers came out. Harvard's Economic Complexity Report, Australia ranks very low relative to its income level, typically in the bottom third of countries and last among OECD countries. Recent Harvard Growth Lab updates have Australia around 100th out of 145 countries.
Wow.
Reported as 93rd of 133 and sliding to about 102nd out of 145 in newer releases. Commentary using the latest data describes Australia as sitting just behind countries like Bangladesh, Senegal, and just above places like Pakistan and Yemen in economic complexity, despite having one of the world's highest GDPs per capita.
Yeah.
Across the OECD, Australia is consistently described as the lowest ranked member in ECI, often 40 to 50 places below the next worst OECD country. In contrast, Australia ranks roughly 9th in the world for GDP per capita in the same data set, which highlights the gap between its wealth and measured export complexity. So why the ranking is low? So this is AI. This is I'm flexing on perplexity here.
Asking perplexity.
The index mainly scores the diversity and sophistication of a country's exported products. Australia's exports are heavily concentrated in low complexity categories such as ores, coal, LNG, and basic agricultural commodities. An analysis stressed that this says more about the mix of what Australia exports than about the underlying sophistication of its production process or service sectors, which are harder for the ECI to capture. Now, what I would say is, we're not exporting anything else. Outside of those things, why don't we have a big crypto industry? Why don't we have a big AI industry? Why don't we have software as a service industry?
Can I answer that question?
Well, it's illegal to do it. It's illegal to do everything.
It's not even illegal. It's net zero.
No, it's not. It's no.
Well, it is. You cannot have crypto. You cannot have AI without energy production.
No, it is part of it, but it's nowhere near what it is compared to the red tape. And I'll give you an example. I've got a lived experience.
I'm not saying that red tape's not a factor, but I'm saying
red tape is like way higher as a factor. That even if you want to set up a bank account for a technology company, there is no pre-filled selection within bank's criteria to even select it.
Yeah.
And then they don't know, the government doesn't know what license they're going to sell you, right? It's crazy how hard they make it to do business here.
Yeah.
So all the investment goes elsewhere, and then all the investment that is already in Australia, investors only want to do shit, which is selling dirt, or in the form of actual dirt, like mining.
Yep.
Or selling dirt in real estate. That's it.
Yeah, and this is sort of what we were talking about the other week too, is that the irony is that all of the resources and stuff that we pull out of the ground, everyone talks about how we don't get enough tax revenue from our natural resources, and I agree with that. We should absolutely be getting far more as a citizenry for our own sovereign resources.
Yep.
But at the same time too, to make it even worse, we then have the government coming out and tell us that, these overseas corporations that we bring in. Now, number one, why do we have to have overseas mining corporations in the first place? Like, why would you not have homegrown mining organisations to pull this stuff out and keep the profits in Australia? Like, this is the thing that Jared Rennick talks about all the time.
Well, even if you did, they wouldn't keep them here because the tax is too high.
Well, yeah, that's kind of part of the problem, right? So then the government comes out and goes, we need to have these overseas companies investing in Australia, otherwise we can never even extract these resources. So that's why we don't extract enough taxation out of them, which again is just a nonsense as well. Like, so we're literally paying these companies to come here. We covered on the show the other week about when the day that the interest rates went up, was it Tim Ayres? I think it was Tim Ayres, dropped the interest rate for these essentially overseas corporations to borrow money from the government to start renewable projects in Australia by 3%. So the Australian taxpayer is subsidising foreign corporations to come here, make money and pay zero tax. Like, it is honestly... It is the dumbest run country on the planet.
Yeah, and that complexity thing kind of proves it. It's like we make money. We should be the richest.
Thank God for resources. Otherwise, we would have nothing.
And that's why they've called us the lucky country. They've called us the lucky country forever.
Yeah,
it's purely down to the resources. But if we didn't have that, we'd have nothing. And I think because we've got it, we're resting on our laurels.
Absolutely.
But like we said, this ever-growing public sector will come home to roost eventually. Like, it's a Ponzi scheme. It's a Ponzi scheme. When I was just looking up the numbers, 12% of our GDP goes to paying bureaucracy.
Yeah, it's insane, isn't it?
Right? The total cost of government is 35% of our GDP. Now, I think that number should be like 5%. Yeah. And the total cost of government and the bureaucracy should be 5%.
Yep.
Because the bureaucracy shouldn't exist. And the people should be allowed to make the businesses what they want and produce whatever they want and sell whatever they want to consulting adults.
Yeah, of course.
Consenting adults.
Yeah. And if you're a frontline worker, you should be offended by the size of the bureaucracy. Because if you're worried about your job and your incomes and stuff like that, they're the ones who are leeching it from you.
Like, you're doing the actual work and then they're freeloading off you.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're getting paid more than you.
And they're getting paid more than you as well. Yeah.
I also find it so there's two things that annoy me about the talk about resources tax.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we're banging on about it, and yes, I agree. But why aren't they talking about what we're spending?
Yeah. And that's the same story in every Western country too, by the way.
Two, a lot of these lefties that are banging on about this taxation thing are also doing it from their Apple devices, which have the same deal.
Yep. Yeah.
And they make more money than what the mining companies make. They're a multi-trillion-dollar company that sends its profits to Ireland. Because the tax rate is 13% there, whereas it's 30% here.
Correct.
So, all right, let's kick on.
Yeah. All right. Where do you want to go to next? Do you want to bring up the Albo clip? Because I just think that this is just interesting. We don't need to harp on about it, but I just thought it was a very interesting slip of the tongue. So Albo was giving an interview yesterday, and he just said a very, very interesting comment. So I'll read the tweet here above it. Breaking: Prime Minister of Australia says he loves public schools because the kids aren't far right yet. He's unintentionally admitting that public schools are already shaping kids towards left-leaning views. Indoctrination starts early. So just play the clip.
One of the things about public schools is that they're open to everyone. Open to everyone. And that is about people being able to participate of different faiths, different backgrounds, learn and engage from each other. I always love going into public schools as well, because for those who, with the rise in some of the far-right ideological positions in recent times, one of the things about going, and it's the same particularly whether it's an early learning centre or into a primary school, kids don't see race, religion, gender, anything else. They just see other kids. You know, hatred and division is something that's learned. And so public schooling is so important. And that engagement, I think, as we go forward, can make a big difference.
Can I ask you a question, Alex? Which side of politics talks more about race, religion, gender, and sexual preference?
It's the total model of the left.
Correct. So
and it's the flag is over there. I can see the flag on the university.
And
I can literally prove it.
Absolutely. And we've discussed many times in recent years about things such as at childcare centres having to have LGBTQIA plus paraphernalia freely available for children to see at childcare centres, otherwise there are threats to remove their childcare subsidy funding. So Albo's, again, saying the quiet bit out loud. The government is using the public school system to educate your children into being far left robots that will support them in the future. This is actually a really good segue into that other story that I sent you through. So for any of you following at home, Julie Inman-Grant, the e-safety commissioner, just lost another court case. So let me read.
Is that a 0% hit rate?
Yeah, she's 0 from 6 or something like that, as far as the major cases that we know about are. So read this out to you. Single mum wins legal fight against e-safety boss Julie Inman-Grant over post criticising primary school queer clubs. This is exactly what we're talking about, right? A Western Sydney single mum has lashed e-safety commissioner Julie Inman-Grant for spending $250,000 in taxpayer-funded legal costs fighting for the right to censor a post critical of a Melbourne primary school's queer club. So just we'll just read a bit. Blah, blah, blah. Federal court decision on Wednesday afternoon dismissed an appeal brought by Commissioner Julie Inman-Grant, marking the end of a 2-year battle for Celine Baumgarten, who's 30 years old. So she has an online handle. She's Celine versus the Machine, I think it is. Amazing, absolutely amazing, Ms. Baumgarten said of the judgment in an exclusive interview with Sky News. It's a win for free speech, it's a win for parental rights, and it's a win for Australia. Ms. Baumgarten, who is bisexual, had posted a 53-second video to X in May 2024 that was critical of a decision by the primary school to host a queer club for its students. In quotes. And in today's edition of Melbourne Doing Melbourne Things, we have a school in Montmorency that has its own queer club, a primary school for years 3 to 6. She says in the video, accompanied by photographs and screenshots taken from the school's newsletter and a teacher's public social media account, none of which identified any children. Look at this, we got the pronouns in the bio, we got the rainbow lanyard, primary school. Let me make something real clear. There is no place for an LGBT club in any school, let alone a primary school. So this is why it was important that earlier on they qualified this by saying she's bisexual, so she's a member of the community, and she's saying that you shouldn't have these clubs in front of kids, and I agree with her, especially as a parent. 8 days later, Miss Baumgarten was shocked to receive a message from X informing her that her video had been geo-blocked, censored across Australia, after the platform received a removal notice from the E-Safety Commissioner's office. She appealed the takedown in the Administrative Appeals Tribunal, which was successful last year. Miss Inman-Grant appealed the tribunal's decision in the federal court, arguing that the tribunal did not have jurisdiction over the dispute. Now, I find that legal argument really interesting in light of what happens next. So just keep that in mind. She said they didn't have legal jurisdiction over this dispute. In handing down the judgment of the full bench, Chief Justice Deborah Mortimer noted it had, in quotes, decided that the tribunal did not make the legal errors alleged by the E-Safety Commissioner. Ms. Baumgarten's legal team estimates the government-appointed regulator spent more than $250,000 in its fight to censor her, first in the tribunal, then the court. It would be hilarious if it wasn't for all the taxpayer dollars that were spent fighting this pointless litigation, she said. It is such a waste of money, and we think with all the issues that we are facing in this country at the moment, funds that could be spent on more important things are spent hounding down a single mum from Western Sydney. E-Safety started out as a reputable agency protecting children online, something that we all want to do. Unfortunately, they've morphed into an ideologically driven powerhouse with a bottomless pit of taxpayer funds, and I think most Australians actually see them as unfit for purpose. So just scroll down, there's some stuff there from the Free Speech Union, blah, 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 blah. Okay, here we go. In quotes, E-Safety claimed they only issued an informal notice, so this is the key point, guys, and that it can't be legally challenged. This is a tactic they have been using in 99% of their cases to try and avoid accountability for their censorious behaviour. The decision of the full bench of the federal court is a major victory for both Selene and the Free Speech Union of Australia. It also means that the E-Safety Commissioner will need to radically revise their operations to comply with the law. We would also invite Miss Edmund Grant to resign. So, don't need to read any more, but I want to make this clear. This is why I thought that that point about jurisdiction was interesting. She has literally... So she was actually part of the process of drafting all of these laws that were going to govern these online platforms. And she has been deliberately going outside of the laws that she helped write by issuing informal takedown notices to these platforms, which the whole point of it is to circumvent the process that she legally put in place in the first place to make sure there was checks and balances on her. So this is exactly the same as that story you brought up last week about how the National Anti-Corruption Commission immediately committed corruption as soon as they were created. She's done the exact same thing. She created the laws and now has been deliberately circumventing them to censor views that she and the government do not agree with online and have zero repercussions for herself.
Do you think she started doing it that way because she's had a couple of those losses early on? So her laws are ineffective, so she's trying to circumvent it?
So
trying to get a result?
Perhaps. I think that this is one of those cases of bureaucratic hubris where she knows she's probably had a million wins doing this. She's probably censored countless posts with these informal notices.
Yes.
But the vast majority of people are like, fuck, I don't have the money to fight the E-Safety Commissioner in court, so they just go away. So she probably had a million wins already by doing this. It's just, this is exactly the same as mandates during COVID. We spoke about that all the time. They're not real laws, right? Yeah. They're just suggestions.
It's a fugazi. It's a do this or else, and it just takes someone to go, or else what? And they're like,
exactly right. And so 99% of people are just going to go, well, fuck, I'm not fighting the government over this. I don't want that sort of stress in my life. I don't have that kind of money. But for the 1% of people who do actually push back and fight back, there are avenues there. But again, this is a perfect example of what Alex is talking about all the time about these bureaucrats. This is anti-Australian, illegal behaviour.
Yeah.
In public office. So, like, this is a funny thing to juxtapose against the Prince Andrew thing, or the pedophile formerly known as Prince Andrew. We'll refer to him from now on, because I don't know what his actual name is anymore. I've forgotten it because he's a fucking piece of shit, and I'm not going to focus on him that much. But you would have seen recently, he is the first high-profile arrest that's happened since these Epstein files have dropped. And a lot of us celebrated going, yep, we're finally starting to see some justice. And then the irony is, he wasn't arrested because of any of the pedophilia, or alleged pedophilia. He was arrested because, as trade envoy, it appears that he may have shared classified information with Jeffrey Epstein in public office.
We'll come to Epstein in a sec. Can I just...
No, I just want to link these two things together, right? So he was arrested for, essentially, misconduct in public office. What the E-Safety Commissioner has been proven multiple times in court now has been that she has been committing misconduct in public office. It's the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's easy, especially being government, it's easy just to call yourself inept. And because it's publicly acceptable for government agencies to be inept.
Maybe the first two times.
It's written into the...
But 6 times in a row for the same thing? That's misconduct.
Well, she should be sacked at
absolutely.
At bare minimum.
If there was any sort of accountability, if the government cared at all about doing the right thing and following the law, they would sack her. But they clearly don't care, because she's doing the job that they want her to do.
Just one more thread that is kind of attached to this. I'd sent you this article. Freedom.gov. So this is a US website, which is coming. I've got the landing page up here now. And what it's going to do is, it's going to uncensor the internet for Europeans. So essentially, you're going to be able to go through...
Can you just reiterate too? This is from America. I don't think that you mentioned that.
This is an American policy. I did. This is an American policy. And look, really, it's you think it's about freedom. It's more about profit for American companies.
Yeah.
Which, like, all the tech companies.
But two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah. The
complex
EU
world.
is so censorious. They are wrecking the internet. All the cookies, every time you go to a website and the fucking cookies thing comes up.
Yeah.
You have to, that was the EU thing that they pushed through. It sucks. They've ruined it. They've just put these new laws in about AI, like what AI can and can't do. They don't even have any AI companies.
Yeah.
So they've, just like I was saying before, trying to start a tech company here in Australia, it's the same shit. You can't get, that new Perplexity thing that I've just downloaded has the prediction markets, Polymarket, built into it.
Right, and you can't even access it.
No, I can see it
Okay.
through this, but I can't go to polymarket.com.
Yeah,
because
that's
Australia
wild,
deems it as illegal, right?
Yeah.
So what this is going to be is essentially have like a free VPN built into it, even though they're saying it won't, but they just won't call it a VPN. Yeah. And then Europeans are just going to be able to go through this portal and then have access to the unfettered internet. And I think that's wild. And I knowing that Inman Grant is a CIA plant,
Yeah.
I want Trump to call off the dogs.
Well, okay, so that's a really interesting point, because you got to remember, she has been in place since the late teens, 2018-ish, somewhere around there. So, remember Trump's first term? He gets office, wasn't expecting it, didn't know who the swamp creatures were, and pretty much as soon as he came into office, the deep state and CIA was hatching plans to remove him. There was all the impeachments over Russiagate and all that nonsense, which was pushed by the intelligence agencies, right? So
this is Polymarket. All this is fueled by Polymarket.
Yeah, wow. Well, that's good that we've got access to that, so we can actually use it for information. Because we say it all the time, if you want real info, forget polls, go to Polymarket.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she was a swamp creature who was put into Australia by the deep state during the reign of the deep state.
Yeah.
Because that was what Trump's first term was. He was being pushed back against by the deep state who was rejecting him. And then obviously under the Biden administration, you just had this complete ramp up of online censorship, which she was a big part of as well. And they fly her around the world and they treat her like she's this great person. And same as what they do with Jacinda Ardern from New Zealand as well.
Well, didn't her travel bills just come up? Didn't we cover that on the show as well? Hasn't she spent $3 million or something in travel?
Yeah.
Well, in the last 6 months or something?
Yeah. That's the thing, is these bureaucrats who, again, the Labor government who pretends to care the most about poor people are setting records for travel expenditure and all those sorts of things as well. So the hypocrisy is just blatant. But the key point is this: you want America to call off the dogs. I think Trump would very much like to. I think Marco Rubio, part of this whole freedom website that you've just brought up, is in line with American foreign policy that Rubio outlined months ago, saying, why would we continue to protect allies who do not share our values? And freedom of speech is the First Amendment of the Constitution. It's our number one most important value. It's the reason why America has become the most successful experiment as a country in history, because they have freedom of speech. And Europe is directly against freedom of speech. So why would we? Right, and we are as well. But I think if you go down Donald Trump's list of things he needs to attend to, I think online censorship in Australia is unfortunately a very, very low priority compared to.
But he has mentioned it. He has mentioned it.
He has.
So it's not that it's off the radar.
Yeah.
Actually, that raises something that we were going to talk about. Jason and I were talking during the week, and we both noticed that a lot of the laws and things that are coming through Australia are being mirrored in other Commonwealth countries.
Yeah.
So England is doing a lot of the stuff that we're doing, but we call it different things, right? But it's essentially the same output, but they're marketing it in a different way. And we noticed, why are we hearing about Canada? And I think you'd admit, I've received no information from Canada. I'm getting pushed nothing out of Canada lately. And besides, who's that guy, the really well-spoken Canadian? He does those can't remember his name.
I can't remember his name. I know who you're talking about though. He's great.
Yeah. Outside of him, I'm not getting any. I used to get a lot.
Yeah.
Because we do share a culture, right? But that's kind of alarming to me, that maybe the censorship is working, that we've forgotten about that country. And we're not hearing about the tyranny that's happening there. So we can't compare it up against the tyranny that's happening here. So there is no link between our tyranny and their tyranny.
Yeah, perhaps, but I would also argue that the country that we are most closely mirroring is the UK, and we hear plenty about what's happening in the UK at the moment. And look, the best example of this happened this week, right? So we just had our first imprisonment because of the hate speech laws, which was I can't remember the guy's name, but for any of those who haven't heard of it, I'm sure you all have, but there was a man who spoke at one of the March for Australia rallies and said the line, and just for the government who's listening, I'm not saying this, don't arrest me, bro. But he just said, as part of his speech, that Jews are the enemy. That was the line. He's just been sentenced to 12 months in prison. Yeah. Now, the same week, and this is something that Alex and I talk about all the time, I think it's something that's very male-oriented. We look at different situations and we apply a gradient of where we think that sits in relativity to other issues, right? In the exact same week, there was a former school principal who got caught with child exploitation material of children under 10 years old on his computer, who was given 3 months imprisonment. So 3 months for child exploitation material, 12 months for saying words. And again, you could argue if saying Jews are the enemy is potentially an incitement to violence. I could almost cop that, right? Almost. Because if you're calling someone the enemy, then you might...
The implication.
That's right, because what do you do to an enemy? You destroy the enemy, right? I could almost cop that. But unfortunately, this is exactly what we spoke about, how these laws are going to be selectively enforced. Because I didn't want to bring it up, but did you see Grace Tame's speech at the pro-Palestinian march that was protesting against the Israeli Prime Minister coming to the country? And at the end of her speech, she said, "Globalize the Intifada." So globalize the Intifada is essentially saying resist Jews all over the world. Now, resist can be interpreted in many different ways, just as Jews are the enemy can be interpreted in many different ways. Why isn't Grace Tame being sentenced to 12 months in prison? What's the difference? The difference is she's a leftist darling, and he's a far-right extremist. That's the difference. Selective application of the law.
And this is why this is so fraught, and why the American system is superior. It's free. Like, freedom of speech, there's no misinterpretation of it. Whereas Jason has just proven how you can weaponize speech. And also too, where this is so dumb, outlawing groups or words, they just change the group or words.
That's right.
So what are you going to do? Are you going to, if you just extrapolate this out into the future, the National Social, what's the bad guys?
Yeah, the NSN, the National Socialist Network.
National Socialist
Network. Who have
Network,
disbanded.
Yep. Could reband, start at A in the dictionary, and rename their organisation every week until every word in the dictionary has been outlawed.
You know what would be the smartest play for them to do? They should rename themselves the Australian Labor Party.
Yeah. We'll spell it LABOUR, it should be spelled. And then everyone's like, oh, they're the Labor Party.
But anyone associated with the Australian Labor Party is now far-right extremist. If you're going to play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. And unfortunately, this is the sort of tactics that will be required to remove these sorts of laws. You have to reduce them to the ridiculous, because they are ridiculous. You cannot imprison people for saying words unless it is a direct call to violence.
And we already have that law.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be a new law. It was
already on the books.
We just need to get rid of this stupid law and stop talking about talking about social cohesion. A surefire way to create less cohesion is to make laws for particular sectors.
Yeah, and to selectively apply them as well.
Yeah,
And this
right.
is where I think one of the things that we probably don't focus on enough in all aspects of whether it's our show or people who speak about similar content is this all falls at the feet of the judicial system. So yes, the politicians
JEWDICA.
Your words, not mine. But no, yes, the politicians write the laws, and that's problem number one. Because they deliberately write them to be as vague as possible. Like these hate speech laws are so vaguely written, and that's by design, because that allows for selective interpretation of the law. But they have to be interpreted by the judicial system of Australia. So we really need to have a deep, hard look at judges in Australia, and their need. Like I would love a royal commission into judgments. I would like to analyse judgments from get Perplexity to do it. Analyse judgments and figure out whether or not there is a political bias in how judgments and sentences have been applied to different groups.
Yeah, we could do that. Do yourself a favour if you're a nerd for this kind of stuff. Constitutional Clarion. She is a constitutional professor.
Mm-hmm.
And she does these great videos, and she cuts straight through it. She has been called before a bunch of hearings as well. And just move my Nat Kuska video there. And she's saying like these laws, as they're written, have holes here, 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 here. And her one of her old clips just came up that Oz vs. the Agenda put up because some moron was asking her like, this thing would be deemed as hate speech under this law, right? And she's like, well, yeah. Well, why has this person got that sign up after if it's illegal? And she's like, well, murder's illegal and people continue to murder. It's people's choice whether they want to break the law or not. You know, the law doesn't stop it. But it's like in her mind, she's thinking, no, we fixed that problem.
It's like the machete ban all over again.
Yeah, we've written a law. There's no more machetes. Yeah. Machetes are gone.
And again,
that's
and it's okay. So how far do you apply these hate speech laws, right? So, I'm a rugby league fan. I love rugby league. Best sport to watch in the world.
Wrong.
Absolutely correct.
I hate that you think that.
Yeah, well, we can agree to disagree.
No. But we can't. In the modern time, 2026, we can't. Okay. You're a racist.
Yeah, that's hate speech, Alex. No, but this is my point, right? State of origin time. Mate against mate, state against state. Everyone talks about, like, we hate each other. The stuff that, like, Queenslanders say about the Blues and the Blues say about Queenslanders, is that hate speech?
Yeah, that's why you can't have any of it.
No, you can't. Because where do you draw the line? It's all subjective.
Matt Stone, it's either all in or it's not in at all.
That's right. You have to either be able to say everything or eventually you'll be allowed to say nothing. And the fact that this is what we covered last week, the fact that you have people justifying the government deciding what you are and are not allowed to say shows that we have completely just forgotten our natural survival instinct. Can you imagine people who built this country, right, as the settlers and stuff like that, saying, don't say a nasty word or we'll put you in prison? Like, they would never cop that. Like, when we grew up, we went to school, we learned about things like Ned Kelly. You know, when you hear about the US revolution and rejecting the Brits, it was all over was it a 2% tax on tea? Like, the stuff that we're accepting in the West, in Australia in particular, because I think we're one of the worst for it in the world now,
totally,
is insane to me.
And we are doing it under the false guise of making us safer.
Yeah, I don't know. When was the last time we had a terrorist attack in Australia? So pre-Bondi, what was the last major terrorist attack that we had?
Lint Cafe?
Yeah, Lint Cafe.
13, 14 or
something like that. So over 12 years.
And arguably that wasn't a terrorist attack too. That could have just been a lone gunman.
Yeah, it could have been.
Just one guy.
But again, so all of this stuff, so all this current government has spoken about for the last 3 years has been social cohesion. Our society is less cohesive than it was prior to them coming into office. So
yeah, oh yeah. So in terms of the brief, you failed the brief.
Exactly, and it's your brief. It's the thing that
And
you keep talking about.
You can't stop talking about it. That's all you talk about. What he was just saying about schools, the far right thing should have never come out. That should never have been said. It was
if you're trying to unify your country as your country's leader, why are you referring to a portion of it as the far right that you clearly hate?
It brings us back to 2016, the deplorables.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton describing Trump supporters as deplorables.
That's right.
Cost her the election.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, this is the blatant hypocrisy of people like Anthony Albanese. You cannot go out there in the public eye every day and constantly say, we are clamping down on your ability to speak freely online because of social cohesion, and in the same sentences saying far-right people are a problem in this country.
Yeah.
Anyone who's got far-right views, they're dangerous and they're a problem. That destroys social cohesion. Because on the one hand, this is the othering thing as a psychological concept. We spoke about this during COVID. They othered the unvaccinated. They made the unvaccinated appear to be less than human, right? Because if you can other a certain group, then they get seen as a threat by everyone else, and then anything you do against that group is now justifiable. That's exactly what Albo's doing to the quote-unquote far right. He is trying to essentially make One Nation supporters the new unvaccinated.
And let me work for Labor for a moment.
Yep.
Why don't you word it a different way? Why don't you... So if you are the inclusive party, say, I want to speak to them. I want you to understand what we understand, and I want you to feel comfortable in coming over to us.
Yep.
Like, there's so many things that we agree on. There's some things that we disagree on. I think if we sat down and we had a beer together, we would, we'd have a good time.
Yep.
I want you to feel welcome in your own country. I want you can have your views, but at the end of the day, we all need to move forward together.
You know why they're not doing it? Because he wants to actively antagonize people from the quote-unquote far right until someone flips out and does something silly, which then justifies further laws against essentially a political ideology that is against his. Yeah,
totally. Can we talk Epstein files?
We can.
So, some new Epstein files came out. This has been a little bit of a... Nothing that juicy's really come out of the Epstein files.
Well, hold on. I would say, for people who have been immersed in this space for as long as we have, nothing that juicy's come out. For your average normie on the street, you're probably having your eyes open to some things. And you probably owe Alex really Jones an apology.
They're like, what do you mean, like, child predators are running the world? And we've, known that, for a long time. But I wanted to, again, I just want to remind people that there are still people out there in media who are weaponizing names in the Epstein files as the weapon.
Yep.
Don't fall for it.
Yep.
Right? I heard someone else saying, oh, this person was... it's so interesting, and Trump's the easy one, but Hillary Clinton shows up as just as many times what Trump does, because the context was usually Trump v. Hillary.
Yeah. Right. I think, do you hear about the Joe Rogan being mentioned in the files?
No.
It's the greatest mention in the files of all of them. So again, you could, if you're a far left outlet who hates Rogan, you could say, oh, Rogan was mentioned in the Epstein files. And he was. And he was mentioned in the files because Epstein realized how influential Rogan was becoming in about, I think it was 2016 or 17 or something like that, and was actually trying to organize a meeting with Rogan. So I can't remember the guest, but there was a guest that went on Rogan's, which was then trying to broker a meeting between Rogan and Epstein. And Rogan basically told him to go fuck himself. And in the emails between the dude and going back to Epstein about it, he said, Rogan's being a little bit more than we expected.
Now I have searched. I just searched Joe Rogan. It should be here somewhere.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry to hear about the upheaval.
Yeah,
I will reach out to Rogan. I think I have his email.
Yeah, Lawrence Krauss. That's the name of the guest. Yep.
Yeah, it is wild, like Damascus. How are things? I saw you did the Joe Rogan show. Can you introduce me? I think he's funny.
Yeah.
My diving instructor and friend. Since he is the reason I know you, I felt appropriate to pass this to you. If there's anything you need underwater.
Hold on. That's going backwards. So that's the previous email. So scroll down.
That's everything.
Is it? Okay. Yes, that's September 14. The one where Jeffrey asked for the meeting is September 24.
Yeah. So then it goes this way. Things are hectic. Sorry for not getting back to you earlier. Sorry about the upheavals, but I know that these things take time. I'll reach out to Rogan. I think he has. I think I have his email, or at least produce his email. He works in LA. So, so there was another email later on that was shown to have Rogan, him basically saying to Epstein that Rogan was being far more timid than they expected. In other words, Rogan doesn't want to come and meet you, mate. So that's a perfect example, right? Mentioned in the files, clearly not guilty of doing anything bad. Jeffrey Epstein. Dude, he's sending a lot of emails to himself.
Yeah.
I've heard people say that they do that for notes, which is weird. I mean, I hate email. But sending... It's almost as if he knew that these files were the power.
It could also be a way of communicating with certain people that you didn't want to have a paper trail by giving them access to your account. So if you give someone else your login details, you send yourself an email, it's a way of sending a message because the other person can log in and read the sent email and get the information without actually having a paper trail between the two of you.
Mm.
Not that they seem to care about the paper trail.
No. What were your takeaways of the new tranche?
Again, unfortunately, the number one thing that I take out of this entire Epstein file saga is everyone owes Alex Jones a massive apology. Alex Jones has been screaming this from the mountaintops forever. And look what they did to him with Sandy Hook. So if you look at these Epstein files and you realise how many high-profile people were compromised in these files, and then you look at how they tried to destroy Alex Jones's life because of one mistake, now you're starting to realise why. So again, it had nothing to do with the families of Sandy Hook that he upset. It had everything to do with the fact that he was over the target, and they tried to destroy him. And I'm not this isn't all just about backing Alex Jones, but this is about, unfortunately, we already knew a lot of this stuff because he's been saying it for years. Eddie Bravo has been saying this stuff for years, and we're just having our suspicions confirmed about some things that, to be honest, I really wish that we were wrong about. I really wish we were. But now a lot of the, my biggest thing that I took out of it, really, not in the new tranche of emails, but is all of the early emails between Epstein, Gates, and them essentially trying to set up this global vaccine profit business using the World Health Organization. There is clear communication between those guys and other people, including JP Morgan and Chase Bank, where they're essentially setting up a giant money factory for themselves, using JP Morgan to wash the funds and using the World Health Organization as the sales pitch to get these vaccines into people all over the world so they can make billions and billions of dollars. And all they talked about was the money. None of it. There was no mention of global health or helping people or preventing diseases or anything like that. It was all about the money the entire time. And when you see stuff like that, and then you see what happened during COVID, and you see how guys like Bill Gates were involved in setting up the Trusted News Initiative, to make sure that only reputable news sources were listened to during COVID. And then you see things like Event 201, which happened in September of 2019, just before COVID kicked off, which is essentially a COVID simulation before it even happened. Like, that stuff, everyone needs to understand. Your life was turned upside down, destroyed. You might have loved ones who are dead now because of global elites using you as tax cattle to make money. That's what it all came down to.
I just found this. I just found this in the files. So it's an email, contact@victory.donaldtrump.com.
Yep.
To Epstein. Pedophiles. This is urgent. Trump text members are my most loyal and dedicated supporters, and I really want you on the team. I haven't heard from you lately, so to be honest, I'm worried I'm losing your support. Pedophiles. It's time for you to send a clear message and publicly stand with me and the party by becoming an official Trump text member. So, does that mean that he has called him, so has he signed up for this? Has Epstein signed up for this? Called himself pedophile?
Yeah.
And then it's automatically...
Yeah, it's done the, find replace in the email. Like an automated email service.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah, all this stuff just goes back to what we talk about every single week on the show and what we started the show with. When you get fed a bullshit, emotionally driven narrative, it is to take money from you so they can steal it from you. That's what it's all about. And you've got to stop falling for it. And we as a society have got to stop falling for it. And I do feel that is largely happening in Australia now. The shift is happening. And did you see the latest poll figures out of Victoria for their coming state election?
Yeah. One
Nation apparently is in the lead in Victoria to win the state election on 26.5%. Do you know what the difference in the One Nation support between now and 2022, the last state election, was? So they just scored
300%.
Well, they just scored 26.5%. In 2022, they had 0.5% of the vote.
Wow.
So a 26% upswing while everyone else is falling through the floor. And again, what we are seeing now is exactly what we spoke about. The Liberal Labor Uni Party.
Laboral.
Albo even spoke about it during the week, about speaking to the Liberals to essentially join together to fight off the far right, which is One Nation. They are worried that the status quo is going to crumble. And look, there is every chance that One Nation gets in and nothing changes, because she's just as compromised as everyone else. There's every chance of that. And all the black pillars who are like, this is a global cabal and it's all a show and you can't vote your way out of it. All right, maybe you're right, but maybe you're wrong. To me, this is sort of like the question of whether or not God is real.
Right.
We don't know whether or not God's real. You'll never know.
Yeah.
But let's say he is, you'll probably want to act right. Right? And if you act in the way that, if you live your life by Christian values, you're probably going to have a pretty good life anyway. So it's the same.
Well, yeah, it's a fight of good versus evil.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the same thing with this whole this idea, this defeatist attitude of you can't vote your way out of these things. I actually think a lot of those are psyops by the Laboral Uni Party and the Republican and Democrat deep state and all the different places all over the world. I think part of it is a psyop to have people who are pushing back against the system completely lose faith in the democratic process and not even try. Because if you don't try, guess what? You are going to lose and things are just going to continue to get worse and worse. So let's say that you all go out and vote for One Nation and she gets in and she does all the same corrupt stuff as what Liberal and Labor have done. What have you lost? Nothing.
Well, if anything, you've learned a lesson, which is that the system's not here for you and you need to look after yourself. Yeah,
exactly right. And, maybe that just accelerates us towards ochlocracy, right? As we covered weeks ago. But at the end of the number one thing that I think about all the time, especially as an older man now, a bit of a wiser man, is you have to plan for the worst and hope for the best. losing hope, like hope is the most powerful force in the world. There is a reason why religious fanatics get so much shit done. Because they have faith in whatever it is that they believe. They have hope that what they believe is the truth. And they have faith in that. And then they execute based on that faith and that hope. As soon as people lose hope, they die. They kill themselves.
Yeah, I look at it a different way. So for me, and I am a really positive person. And yes, on here we do talk about a lot of, I guess, the cracks of darkness in the system. But I think we're doing it because we want to show how to live a better life.
Yep.
And understanding these structures gives you the data necessary to make the right calls in your life.
True.
I know the world I'm going to build myself. So I don't need hope. I'm not hopeful for it. I'm just initiating it every single day. Like I'm taking a step every day to advance myself to the life that I want. Hope doesn't enter the equation for me.
Okay, that's fair. But if you also had someone coming to you saying, don't even try, because you're going to try to build this new system for yourself and the powers that be are not going to allow that.
Yeah, I just know that will fail.
And you became demoralized, which is what, unfortunately, I think the majority of the population is. It is that demoralization campaign. And that's where I think hope has to actually play a factor for the majority of people. Because I'm going to say, not that many people are plugged in enough and motivated enough and have the intelligence and the means to execute an exit from the matrix as you. So for those people, you need to give them something else to fuel them to even plug in the first place, to realize what's going on. There's probably the thing about the Epstein thing too that we need to mention. There's horrendous stuff in those documents, like absolutely horrendous stuff. And for a new-eyed, fresh-eyed person who didn't even realize this world existed, it must be the most confronting experience to go through and hear and read and see some of the things that are in those documents. Like, it would be world-shattering for a lot of people who've seen this stuff for the first time. But for like seasoned vets who've known about this stuff for a long time, it obviously doesn't affect us in the same way. So I know that like we've had some messages into the show about like pretty much asking like, why haven't we talked about a lot of the kids stuff and those sorts of things. Number one, I think it's horrendous, and me as a dad, I hate talking about it. I know that exists in the world. I do things every single day to protect my own children against that outcome in the real world. Like, that's the way that I deal with that particular aspect. But I don't need to immerse myself in it. It's not good for your brain. It's not good for your soul. Like, it is fucking evil stuff. So we know it's happening, but completely flooding your mind with it every single day just isn't good for you.
Also, I can also see a lot of dejection from people who are normies to this, new to this space, and are like wanting justice, and us knowing there is not going to be any justice. And it's like, and I've had to tell people like, dude, this is not the worst thing that's ever happened in the world, and people have gotten away with it. So there's no one's gone to jail. Prince Andrew's not going to go to jail, even though they've just arrested him.
Well, they already released him.
Yeah, like it's just so forget about it. It's
a dog and pony show.
Yeah, don't let it upset you at all. Just know that it is how it is, and understand what the lesson that I want out of this is that power structure is there for them.
Yeah,
it's not there for you. If you're relying on these guys to make your life better, you will fail at life.
There's a movie.
So don't put your faith in these people. Don't put your trust in these people. Don't let them dictate your life.
Yeah, there's a movie, a kids movie about this, which I can't remember if it's Ants or A Bug's Life. I think it's A Bug's Life. And the whole premise of the movie is that you've got these ants that are threatened by crickets every single year. So they've got to do all this farming, and they've got to, get seeds and grain and stockpile for winter. And they actually have to give a large proportion of all of the work they do to these crickets, because these crickets come through and threaten that they'll essentially wipe out the entire colony if they don't give them this food as like a payoff for not doing it. And there's a scene later on in the movie where the like head cricket is talking to one of his henchmen, and he's saying, you cannot show any weakness towards these ants. Because if they realise that they outnumber us millions to one, this whole racket falls apart. Like, that's exactly what we're dealing with here. We outnumber this global elite billions to one, or probably millions to one, hundreds of millions to one. The number one thing they don't want us to do is to unify with each other, which is why we get this divide and conquer bullshit fed to us every single day.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
So, do what Alex is doing. Understand these systems exist wholly and solely for their benefit at your expense.
Yep.
And remove yourself from these as much as possible. Yep. And the best revenge, you're not going to get justice, but the best revenge is living well.
Yeah, that's very well said. Perfect.
All right, on that note, let's leave it there. Thanks very much for joining us, guys, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.